So, welcome back to 3rd Age Reforged and to another battle replay, and we are going to be making our return to MORIA today because we have not seen it in 0.97 as of yet. And as you can firstly see, there has been a change made to this map, and it's no longer in the jungle terrain, it's in the terrain that it's supposed to be in, it's in the mountains. So that's something, but of course the main mechanics of MORIA have of course not really changed. It's going to be much the same as it was before, but we'll see how 0.97 treats the famously grindy map that is MORIA. So you can see in here as well, obviously things are looking a little bit brighter on this map now actually as a result of the change of terrain as well, which is quite interesting. We'll go through the attacking armies first of all, starting off with the player who sent it to me and who was very eager for me to show it. So again, I'm trying to move as quickly as I possibly can, but please don't come and complain to me if I'm taking a while, because I've actually been able to move faster than I thought I would have been able to so far. But again, I'm not sure really how things are going to go. Like I said, things are a little bit up in the air for me at the moment. I'm trying my best to get through things as quickly as I possibly can, but don't start sort of constantly pestering me if I'm not moving as fast as you would like. If that's the case, then you'd be better off sending replays to someone else. Of course, I always want to accept people's replays, but please don't complain if I'm taking too long, because again, like I said, it's very difficult for me at the moment to keep up the pace that I'm doing, so just bear with me a while. I know that most of you will, but please don't complain at me in such a way. It really does bum me out if someone does that. But we'll start off, Agalar Galudithon, who I'm actually not sure that he was the player who sent me it. I think it was Matt Bron who sent me it, but we're going to be seeing it from Agalar's perspective nonetheless. He's got some... oh, excuse me. He's got a Mordor army here with some fodder, of course, a free unit. Some Orc Maulers as well, considering this is a Dwarven settlement. It's fair to say there's probably going to be some armoured units on the defence, so good to see them here as well. Some Sauron's Will hidden in amongst there as well, very menacing looking with their white skin, red eyes, and big serrated blades. Orc Javelins are must in pretty much any Mordor army because of how cheap they are and how much damage they can do. Morannon Archers, of course, just to put some extra pressure on. Blackguard of Barad-dûr. It'll be interesting to see how well they can perform in this situation. We've seen mass pushes fail on numerous occasions in 0.97 because they've been utilised at the wrong time. We'll see if that's the case here, because there are a lot of them, so it's clearly in Mordor's mind to do that. A couple of units of Morannon infantry. We also have some Olag High, and I believe his general was the Nazgul as well, who are probably hidden in and amongst the infantry blob over here. They are going to be up against, well, they are going to be alongside the army from the other of the two towers, which is going to be Isengard, of course, played by Matt Bron, who did send me the replay, even if we're not seeing it from his perspective. Crossbows, of course, with the Lurtz hunting pack, so more of a ranged threat from Isengard, you would say here, but probably a smaller army as well, as you can see here, a little bit more of a professional angle to them than the hordes of Mordor. Uruk-hai infantry across the front here, backed up by Uruk-hai pikemen, so a very solid front line indeed. And then just in behind them, we're going to see stuff like Uruk-hai berserkers as well with their AP. They're sort of floating at the moment because of their sort of taunting animation, but that will right itself as the battle goes along. We've got some Trolls to White Hand as well, just, well, on the same level certainly as the Trolls, as the Olag High, so we'll see how the defenders deal with things on this side. More Uruk-hai infantry. I'm not sure where the general is. It's possible there's Nazgul around here somewhere, or we could be in the Lurtz hunting pack. Meanwhile, on the other side of things, we have the Witch Realm of Angmar, played by Chris Gamers 70. Angmar, of course, he's got some Snaga Archers hidden, as well as some Angmar Marauders for some numbers. Going for a more numbers-focused approach with Angmar is certainly possible, and may not be the worst idea in a situation like this, where you're going to have to send units into a meat grinder. Orc Fellas over here, so for some AP, obviously very vulnerable to arrows, though. Upgraded Guardians of Kharn with their jet black armour and fur cloaks. Gundabad Guard over here on the side, who do buff morale a little bit, I believe. In addition to the Trolls of Gundabad, so yeah, more high-tier Trolls. Some Witch Realm Pikemen. Some Witch Realm Blackguard as well, a very strong unit, of course. And he's also gone for some Blackwatch Legion. So we shall see if the mass pushes come off here. And then, of course, everyone's favourite unit, the Witchers. We'll see how well the Witchers can do. Honestly, on a map like MORIA, the Witchers can be kind of necessary for a faction like this, especially with their composition, just because otherwise they can really just keep filing into a very strong Dwarven defence and really just sort of get thrown back on every occasion, especially seeing as mass pushes are a little bit more difficult to pull off now. At least that's how it seems. And then we have Beshi, who's going to be playing as the Orcs to Misty Mountain, so all of the Orcs are on the attack today, trying to take Moria. Mountain Orc Berserkers are hidden here. AP again, they're actually fairly expensive for what they offer, maybe a little bit too expensive for my liking, but they can do a lot of damage. I just worry that they won't be able to do that before getting shot in this situation. Crossbows, always a good move for the Misty Mountains to bring. Goblin King's Bodyguard, where Azog is, a very safe place for him to be as well. Some Blackbacks, very nice, of course. Cave Troll Drummers to keep all the goblins pointing in the right direction. Halberds and infantry all over the place back here, including some Goblin Archers. Kind of a neat little nook over here that overlooks the mountains. Heavy goblin crossbows, cave trolls, more mountainer, well, some mountainer at coast, which are much sturdier line infantry unit than heavy goblin infantry. So we'll see how well they can do. Yeah, like I was just thinking, like this would be like a fairly decent area for like a map in its own right, sort of like these hilly terrains. We shall see what becomes of the maps that are being made in the geographical locations of Middle Earth. Now we shall move on to the defenders, however, starting off with Y2K86, who's going to be playing as Dale, of course, natural allies to the dwarves. We have some Dalian Spearmen and some Barding Herd here on the front line, a solid phalanx, the damage and AP from the Barding Herd, as well as their armour, and then obviously the line holding capabilities of the Dalian Spearmen. Over on the other side we have some Dalian Bowmen, so obviously Dale are very capable of bringing a very, very strong fat force of archers. Some Bardian Marksmen without the armour upgrade, which is a shame because I really do like the model that they get when they upgrade the armour, but nonetheless, still very much the same kind of unit. Solid in a skirmish fight, and then obviously decent makeshift line infantry as well. Greenwood Lumbermen, very cheap but AP. Dismounted Earls of Dale, they're a very good line infantry unit as well, to be fair. They don't have the best shield value, but they have very heavy armour, and in a melee fight they are very effective up there alongside the likes of the Alcarondas Legion. So it does give you a bit of an idea of what Dale can field in terms of their infantry. Another unit of Earls of Dale over here. They're going to be backed up by some Gondorians, played by Almighty Landon. He's got some Raven Helms back here, Marksmen of Caer Andros, some Athala Rangers from Dales, and Wardens of the White Tower. So Gondor and Dale, kind of dwarven in their approach to armour. They're pretty heavily reliant on it, especially Gondor, it must be said. So any AP on the attacking side is not going to go to waste, certainly. Gondor infantry and spearmen on the road up to the town centre over here, and then packed in here we have some Fountain Guard, some Swordmasters of Esgaroth, as well as the Raven Helms. We have some Dalian Paladins in there as well, some Axemen of Lasarnak, Barding Herd, and some Citadel Guard guarding that approach, as well as some more Nimlothian Honour Guard just over there in the side passage. And then further down here, we're going to start to get into some of the, well, pretty much the entirety of the Dwarven army. The Wardens of Minas Ithil, who we don't see an awful lot of because Rangers, their DPS suffers when they lose a lot of unit models, and while individually they're stronger than Ithilian Rangers, because of their small unit size, they don't tend to do an awful lot of damage very quickly in comparison to regular Rangers, which is a shame for them. Veterans of Osgiliath as well as a catapult, and then over here of course we have the Dwarves of Khazad-dûm fighting on their home turf, played by Enrix. He has got some Guards of Khazad-dûm, Mithril Guard, the Iron Watch of Miramir, who, as I've said before, there is a way that you can use them which is kind of cheesy and makes them very effective. Otherwise they're so inaccurate that they're very difficult to use properly. We'll see how they're used here. Orc Hunters of Khazad-dûm, a lot of Hammers of Gundabad, some more Gondorian Spearmen, so Gondor playing the supporting role I think on both sides as Dale and Khazad-dûm stack up very heavily on each side. Fountain Guard and Gondor Infantry, a lot of 3rd Legion Infantry, unupgraded but they're still very, very strong nonetheless. 4th Legion Shield Guard, Khazad-dûm Reclaimers, and then some 1st Legion Pikes and some 2nd Legion Axe Guard right on the front line, so the Dwarves are going to have to, well, the Dwarves are going to make sure that the Orcs are put right up against it right from the off here, but I will make a potentially quite a small cut as the attacking armies sort of close in and start assaulting the settlement. A pretty intimidating sight here as the gate threatens to buckle. The Gondorian Spearmen, it looks as though they are going to be the ones to take up the mantle. The Dwarves are actually pulling back a little bit here, so they're not going to make sure that the Dwarves are put, well, that the Orcs I should say, are put right under pressure straight away as soon as they move in through the gate. They're going to try and position themselves to maybe get a nice surround engagement over here. You can see there the Nazgûl are right next to them. The fodder that's going to inevitably be the first wave in. Khazad-dûm Reclaimers as axe throwers of course are very effective. I've spoken of my appreciation for axe throwers in my recent top 10, where I gave the Eowyn Shieldmanes the lofty height number 2 on my list. But the Khazad-dûm Reclaimers are a very similar sort of thing, only higher tier, so you'd expect them to be more damaging. Thinking of getting in there a little bit more. Meanwhile, over on the other side, the gate has already fallen, and rather unsurprisingly perhaps, the attackers over here are going to try and use their archers to try and skirmish with the enemy before moving in, but the Dalian Spearmen are going to catch up to the Snaga archers, and of course the Snaga archers are pretty helpless in melee against just about anything, and the Dalian Spearmen are honestly a pretty decent unit, all things considered. Definitely one of Dale's most efficient units that they can have on the front line for just holding. You can see here that the Orc fellas are going to pour forward, and they are a more capable unit in melee, of course. They're certainly not high tier by any means, but they're capable of dealing damage. And they are going to force this single unit of Dalian Spearmen off, because otherwise they could of course be overwhelmed. The Orc fellas, however, will be very vulnerable to the Dalian archer line. unshielded as they may be. But here you can see the Orc fellas actually doing very well to just sort of slice through the back of the Dalian spears there, who were pointing the wrong way, really. And they did take a charge in the back from the Orc fellas there, which is, again, it's one of those things, like, you have to make sure that your units are pointing in the right direction. You have to make sure they're not really opened up to that sort of damage, and honestly that's a pretty good catch from the Witch Realm of Angmar. They're going to lose Orc fellas doing it, but that's definitely a good trade for them. The defenders can afford to lose less manpower than the attackers after all. The one thing I would say though is that it's probably not going to work out too well for the attackers to try and skirmish with Dale here. Like, if Dale can do one thing, it's just sort of withstand a long range fight like this for an awfully long time. And if the Dalian bowmen do start to target down the Snaga archers, as they probably should, to be honest with you, in 0.97 the higher tier archers are now very capable of just shredding through lower tier archers like Snaga. It's going to be a fairly easy task for Dale really to just sort of throw off this initial force, and then all of these units really would have been bought for nothing. Meanwhile, over on the other side we can see that there is a fairly big committal here. Snaga skirmishers coming in. That, however, is not really the opening engagement that the defenders will want. A bit of friendly fire from their own catapult right into the centre of the Gondorian and Dwarven infantry force. But you can see here, Gondor and the Dwarves being forced to come forward, and this is the thing that you have to really bear in mind when you're the defenders. Like, the attackers are going to try and use like javelins and archers and crossbows to bait you into, well, to sort of, well, they're not necessarily to bait you, but just to hit your more vulnerable units. And you can see here that as a result of basically abandoning the gate, you know, the Orcs have managed to get in through the gate now, and they've got their javelins set up and they're teeing off into the Fountain Guard. And once again, it's not the first time we've seen this in quick succession. Fountain Guard are essentially just being sort of hung out to dry, and that's the last unit as Gondor that you really want to be losing. The Dwarves need to hold their nerve here as well. Like, there is no falling back for them at this point, because if they continue to fall back, the Orcs are going to pour into this wide area. They need to keep up. I honestly think Gondor and the Dwarves here need to counter-attack into the Orcs. They need to be aggressive. They need to utilise some of their stronger units. The Nazgul are at the centre of this force, so it's not necessarily going to break too easily. Most of it, however, is made up of lower end units. It's the sort of thing which Gondor and the Dwarves really should be able to deal with. This, however, is the hallmark of a very inexperienced player, just leaving your Fountain Guard out to be completely butchered by Orc javelins. That's a fantastic bit of value that Mordor are getting off their javelins here. And this entire unit of Fountain Guard is pretty much gone. And yeah, if just... I can't believe this is advice that needs to be said to new players, but if one of your higher tier units is being shredded, do something with them. Don't just leave them there. Either pull them back or send them in. You're playing right into the enemy's hands if you do that. And now that the Dwarves have essentially pulled back, they're leaving Gondor to their fate, and I have to say the teamwork here between Gondor and the Dwarves is very, very poor early on. The Khazad-dûm Reclaimers are going to be doing a lot of damage to this Orc force as they move forward, but it's nothing particularly high tier. The Nazgul are in there, but the chances of those actors actually finding their mark onto the Nazgul is relatively low. And a single unit of Gondor spearmen that were essentially abandoned on the front line by the 4th Legion Shield Guard, a higher tier unit of spears, which would have been very helpful for the Gondorians here on the front line, but they're not going to be able to hold up for too much longer here, the Gondorians. It's not as if they're up against the highest tier of units. But obviously it's not going to go too well for them here. They're just outnumbered. There's still some very strong Dwarven units in behind, but I'm not really a big fan here of how the defenders have set their table so far. They are going to get kills here with some of their archers, but you can see here the ones of Minas Ithil that have just sort of stood there, not firing. You know, and now the 4th Legion Shield Guard are going back in. When the Gondorians are pretty much all dead, that's when they decide to commit themselves. Again, very, very questionable. Of course, it's still early days, so it's definitely the sort of thing that they can recover from the defenders, but not a brilliant start if I'm honest with you. It speaks of... there's a lot of inexperience there. Fortunately though, I think the Dalian player, Y2K86, we've seen a little bit more of him in the past, so he should be less inclined to make mistakes like that. And you can see here that his bow line is really doing the lion's share of the work. He's sending forward these depleted units to sort of get in the way of the advancing Misty Mountains and Angmar forces. You can see now that Gondor once again are just sending forward a single unit of spears, which should be enough to hold them in place for a little while longer, but he's definitely going to need the continuing support of the Dalian bowline. The Athala Rangers are actually shooting in here, body piercing. There's a decent blob for them to go after, so that's very good for them. But the Gondor spearmen, they're really up against it here just through sheer numbers. Like, the Gundabad Guard are a pretty good unit of spears, honestly. Fairly expensive for Orcs. But the Gondor Spearmen also weren't able to get in formation here. They're sort of still trying to sort themselves out, and that's never a good thing. Like, you need to be disciplined and organised against the superior numbers force, especially against the Orcs, because they can just rush forward and overwhelm you. And Gondor, immediately seeing the error of their ways, charging into a fight they really had no business getting into. They should really try and regroup here with the Dalians to try and set up a more united front. And again, I feel as though the teamwork here for the defenders is a little bit all over the place here in the early game. And the attackers haven't really had to do much of anything other than just sort of push forwards and use some of their skirmishers to chip away at the defences. This phalanx is going to be a little bit harder to break through, however. The Dalian Spearmen and the Barding Herd together should be more than enough to hold this attacking force at bay for some time, unless they send in some of their better units like their Trolls, potentially the Blackwatch Legion as well. But the Dalians, of course, they're still here with their archers, ready to open up. And they do have a perfect shot here, that is worth saying. As soon as Angmar and the Misty Mountains do blob up on that hill, they easily are going to be able to just fire in there. It's a shame they don't have javelins on hand. Maybe they do, maybe the Celdwyn River Patrol were just hidden. Meanwhile, over here, the Dwarves have pushed forward now. More Gondor infantry are coming forward to support. This is a little bit more like it from the defenders. The Khazad-dûm Reclaimers are also in there, who of course are very accomplished in melee as well, with those two-handed axes that they wield. Going to be able to do a lot of damage. You can see here that the Uruk-hai crossbowmen were trying to get to the front line as well. Morannon archers trying to lay down a bit of support. So now, the onus is on the Orcs to keep this attack going, because they are now up against it, against the Dwarven and Gondorian infantry. But if they do keep up the attack, I do feel as though the defenders have already shown that they're maybe a little bit more reluctant to send in reinforcements. We shall see. The Uruk-hai crossbows trying to get into a position where they can fire, but it's not easy. Like, javelins in this situation are ideal because it's very close quarters. Crossbows, though, probably could do with a little bit more room, and they don't have the best of angles. You can see here another unit of 4th Legion Shield Guard, or 3rd Legion Infantry, I should say, are now moving forward. They're going to try and get through this gap, maybe, to go after the crossbows. That's definitely what I would do. Shutting down these crossbows. Some of the crossbows are actually already being engaged by the mail-clad Gondorians. Khazad-dûm Reclaimers' victory seems certain. There's a lot of AP here on the front line for the Orcs, but most of it is very low tier, so the Dwarves and Gondorians should be able to hold up against that relatively easily. But now we're starting to see some of the Isengard forces move forward, not just the crossbows, but Uruk-hai infantry as well. That will be a little bit more like it from an attacking perspective. Morannon infantry coming forward, trying to absorb some of those arrows with their shields. 3rd Legion are trying to push through into the crossbows and succeeding for the most part. The chanting from outside, I presume, is coming from the Sauron's Will. No, from the Temple Executioners. Another very strong unit they're going to have to deal with. But yeah, the Dwarves, it was a little bit ropey early on, but they have managed to salvage things by being a little bit more aggressive and taking the fight to the attackers. Like, leaving the attackers to just use all their skirmishers on your neatly prepared defensive lines was never going to be a good idea. And it does look as though finally Almighty Landon and Enriques have managed to get their ducks in a row there, which is good to see. And they are now forcing the attackers back, and the attackers need to send forward some more elite units than they're doing, because these basic units are not going to do the trick against these Dwarven infantrymen. Going to need something a little bit more solid. Meanwhile, here, more and more lower tier units pouring forward. Goblin archers from the Misty Mountains, a whole bunch of heavy goblin spears. Fairly hefty force this, but the Dalian front line is holding up very well. The Gundabad Guard have really not made a dent in the Barding Herd, who are really at the centre of this force, surrounded by the spears to try and take the blows for them. I'm a big fan of the Barding Herd as well from Dale. Very good unit of halberds, very heavily armoured. They have a bit of a shield value as well. And then obviously they have the armour-piercing damage in that phalanx that halberds are known for. Goblin Band are pushing in, but they're not really likely to do much of anything either. You can see there is a bit of routing going on from some of the lower tier units. The Dalians are now really starting to tee off into the attackers with all their archers. The Athala Rangers are also doing the same. Body-piercing arrows. Goblin archers trying to do their thing. And it may be that, all of these Dalian archers need to use their ammunition at this point, because the attackers are trying to use their own archers to respond in kind, but Dale can afford to be quite pleased with their day's work here so far. Their front line is holding up very nicely. Some Greenwood Lumbermen are coming across as well, just to add a little bit more solidity to the front line, I think. And also some armour-piercing damage, which won't be the worst thing to add against the heavy goblins, augmenting the armour-piercing damage which is already there from the Barding Herd. Bardian Marksman also going to try and get over here, potentially to shoot along the line, which should be fairly decent. The Heavy Goblin Spears do have a fairly decent shield value themselves, but I mean at this point they are under the cosh. Here come the Trolls, and this is actually a good opportunity to use the Greenwood Lumbermen. Like, they are a lower end unit, but the armor piercing damage there should be fairly good against the Trolls. Interesting committal of units here from Angmar. This is a fairly big play by them. I would be, if you're going to send in the Trolls, I think you need to have more forces following them in. This needs to be the moment that you really start to push. But it doesn't look like there's any other reinforcements on hand, to be honest with you. And now it's highly likely that the Trolls are just going to get bogged down and eventually killed. They should be able to do enough damage to this front line where Dale start to struggle. But when you commit a unit like the Trolls, you really want to be pushing your opponent onto the back foot. I'm not sure whether they're going to be able to do that, especially with more Gondorian reinforcements coming across. The Dalian Bowmen that are out of ammunition also moving in. The Bardian Marksman getting into place to try and shoot into the centre of that Orc blob. Meanwhile, having a look over here. Similar story on the other side though, just in time to catch this. This is a little bit more like it from the attackers on this side. When you move forward in force. The Blackguard of Barad-dûr, the Trolls and the Sauron's Will, so all of a sudden a bunch of quality coming in here, and that's going to be enough to completely overwhelm the Dwarven force that was on the front line. The question now is, I mean, the Dwarves, they're going to have to send forward units. They weren't prepared for this, and they are going to be caught cold here. They're going to send in their 1st Legion Pikes and their 2nd Legion Axe Guard, but this is going to be difficult to recover from now, honestly. You can see here the Orc Hunters of Khazad-dûm are firing away. But this is the moment that Mordor and Isengard need to just pour in, send everything forward and try and crush Khazad-dûm underfoot. And the presence of that catapult will probably hasten their desire to do so, because that catapult is getting good hits. I'm not sure whether these catapults and these archers are going to be able to kill off the Orc force quickly enough, however, for it to really make a huge difference. You can see here the Trolls are pushing forward in the vanguard, going after the Orc Hunters of Khazad-dûm. It's a risky strategy this from Isengard and Mordor, but I would be very surprised if it didn't pay off. The mass push succeeding there as the Mordor Great Shields and Trolls pushing forward in the vanguard, and then all of the other infantry units pouring in behind them, rushing into Moria. Another decent hit, but they're going to need better hits than that, honestly. Like that. Damaging here, but again, like you can see, they're just trying to push forward into the catapult, trying to stop it from firing. And to be fair, Khazad-dûm do have another sort of secondary infantry line set up here. The Orc Hunters are trying to run away from the Trolls, but the Trolls probably won't want to get involved with the Hammers of Gundabad. They're exactly the sort of unit which can be very deadly against Trolls. I wonder what the Iron Watch of Mirrormere are going to do here. You can see here the Raven Helms are coming down here. Only half the Mordor force remains, so you know they have paid quite dearly for pushing in like that, but it was successful. When you're on the attack like that, that's exactly what you want to see when you move forward with a lot of force, and that is how it's done. Of course, this is still something that the Dwarves can recover from. Just by virtue of them having very strong individual units of infantry, they can make life pretty uncomfortable for Isengard and Mordor as they move forward, but you would imagine that it's going to come down to the town centre and the forces that Gondor and Dale still had sequestered there. Orc Hunters are trying to get out there. You can see the Trolls are now starting to fall in melee with the Hammers of Gundabad. The Guards of Khazad-dûm are also coming in here. The Sauron's Will are getting up in support now. But the Orcs do need to keep the momentum going. They need to get all of their forces up here to support their Trolls, otherwise they're very likely to fall away. The Trolls are still trying to go after the Archers. Are the Iron Watch of Mirrormere going to fire? It would be a very risky thing to try and fire close to your own lines, because again, their accuracy is such that you can very easily hit your own men. Let's see what's happening over on this side of things. So yeah, unlike on the other side, over here, a little bit less fortunate. They didn't really have the reinforcements on hand to really smash this defence to bits all in one go, and as a result, Dale and Gondor are still just about hanging on to this position over here. I did notice in the background over there that the Cave Trolls had pushed their way in. The Cave Trolls, of course, can get through a line very, very quickly indeed. You can see up here there's some Morroquendi bows, so another little force from Dale here, Morroquendi pikes and dismounted earls. They did have the Keldwyn River Patrol hidden away as well, but these Cave Trolls are not going to last too much longer. Trying to go after the Keldwyn River Patrol, but the dismounted earls of Dale and the pikes will be able to kill off only 3 Cave Trolls. They're certainly not as tough as the Olag Kai, Trolls of Angmar or Trolls of the White Hand. Heavy Goblin crossbows very damaged. Marksman of Andros also over here. Like, it's only a matter of time before this front line does fall away. But I do feel as though Gondor and Dale had a little bit more fortune over here when defending their lines than Khazad-dûm had on the other side. Khazad-dûm, Gondor sending forward some Raven Helms to try and help out, but I mean, is the catapult going to fire? The Iron Watch are firing. You can see there that their shots are really going all over the place. If you see units go flying randomly, it's because the Iron Watch bolts have hit them, but it's so difficult to use the Iron Watch in the way that they're supposed to be used. You can see their bolts are just going all over the place. Really the best way to use them, as I said, is to get them right near the enemy line and then shoot through them. But again, it's kind of a cheesy way of using them. Khazad-dûm forced onto the back foot here, and it's a desperate fight for them and Gondor to try and hold back Mordor and Isengard. The momentum is definitely with the attackers over on this side of things. Sauron's Will taking point. Uruk-hai pikemen really helping to shore up the line. The Hammers of Gundabad are doing their best, but there's only so much the brass-clad dwarves are going to be able to do in this situation, unfortunately for them. Still trolls that are alive. The Iron Watch of Mirrormere taking some damage from them. The guards of Khazad-dûm are over here trying to help finish off the dwarves. You can see here the Mithril Guard and the Dwarven Archers taking some volleys from the Orc Javelins. And Khazad-dûm, I feel as though they're kind of in a situation where they don't know what's hit them here, and this player's not really sure how best to proceed, but he needs to just sort of commit one way or the other, and he is going to commit his Mithril Guard forward, which is bold. But it could be the sort of thing, honestly, which gives the Orcs over on this side a little bit more pause. And this is a little bit of a more vulnerable position. He's going to get into the Orc Javelins with his Mithril Guard, which of course is going to go very poorly for the Javelins. Hammers of Gundabad are starting to get overwhelmed, in particular the Raven Helms are getting overwhelmed. Temple Executioners are on their way forwards. Are the Trolls all dead at this point? I think they are. I think the Guards of Khazad-dûm have finally finished them off. Nope, they're still over here, and they're finishing off the catapult. Another very good catch here from Mordor and Isengard, who have played very well with one another, I have to say. Nice communication, nice support. Army compositions that complemented each other as well. Mordor with a lot of fodder and the mass pushing units. Isengard with a much more solid army with the pikes and the infantry. Very good. Very, very good. The dwarves still being forced ever further backwards. Meanwhile, Barrow Wights over on this side from Angmar. Certainly not the monsters they used to be in the last patch, but still potentially annoying to deal with. Here you can see the Morroquendi bows firing off with their poison arrows. Maybe trying to solicit some sort of break. They're going to need to get out of there now, though. I mean, they should be able to. They're pretty swift elven units. The heavy goblin spears are moving that way. Bardi and Marksmen are going to be firing away over here as well from the high ground as well. And certainly over on this side, the defenders have had a better time of it. Their ranged units, particularly the Dalian archers, have done a very good job at thinning the herds from Angmar and the Misty Mountains. But now the Misty Mountains are starting to send forward some of their better units of line infantry. We'll see how well that goes. The problem that the defenders have now, though, is how much resources can they really afford to spend on Angmar and the Misty Mountains? Because eventually, this fight is going to go against them. The Mithril Guard over here pushing through, but they're sort of right in the sight lines of crossbows and javelins at this point, and they're up against Nars-Kai. So again, this maybe speaks of a little bit of naivety from this player. He's chased the enemy too far, and now he's up against, well, he's in a situation that he really doesn't want to be in. Not a good place for the Mithril Guard to be. Javelins continuing to rain down upon them. There goes the Isengard General, though, which maybe could have an effect. Of all the Orc factions, Isengard are maybe the ones that you'd expect to be able to hold their morale together a bit better, but near to where the General died, there was a bit of shaken there. But they have managed to stabilise, I think, sensing the fact that they are certainly still in the ascendancy. Some Citadel Guard over there. The Iron Watch of Mirrormere and the Guards of Khazad-dûm fighting off against the Sauron's Will. They will be victorious if there's no reinforcements forthcoming, but I kind of doubt that. The Iron Watch of Mirrormere are going to try and get out of there. Don't know how useful they will be in the final stand. They could be very useful. Like, they have the damage potential, if you use them in the cheesy way, is up there alongside the likes of the Blacklock Engineers and the Witchers. But again, the positioning has to be perfect, and I'm not sure whether they will be able to do that in the square-shaped town centre of Moria. Temple Executioners flooding forwards with their upgraded armour, Orc Javelins also. The Orc Hunters of Khazad-dûm have been trying their best, but they've definitely been heavily depleted by the Trolls and ranged units before now, and they're going to be finished off relatively quickly. The Hammers of Gundabad, I mean, the fact that they're locked morale has helped them out a little bit here, because it has meant that Mordor and Isengard's momentum has been stalled a little bit. They've had to sort of slow down, but ultimately their fate has been sealed for quite some time over on this side, you would say. Continuing the push here. Meanwhile, what have we here? Heavy Goblin Spears setting up over here. Bardian Marksman shooting down onto the bridge. So I think this really is just a defensive position, and primarily Angmar and the Misty Mountains are going to take the shortest path to the town centre, going to punch right through the middle. These Snaga Archers, I'm not really sure what they were hoping to accomplish. Snaga Archers and Heavy Goblin Spears immediately being butchered by Raven Helms of Caer Andros with those big swords of theirs. Will be interesting to see how Angmar and the Misty Mountains approach this. Like, Mordor and Isengard have taken losses getting as far as they have done, so I don't think really attacking the town centre right away is what they should do. They should wait for Angmar and the Misty Mountains to have a little bit more of an impact on the other side, and they should attack the town centre at the same time. However, if the defenders continue to oblige them by sending individual units into their full army, Mordor and Isengard may very well continue to move forward, because I mean it's only a single unit of Citadel Guard that are here. The Guards of Khazad-dûm are also coming down here. The Iron Watch of Miramir actually may very well have a... This may be a situation where they can actually be useful. Although I say that, maybe I was hoping for too much there. I think they might be going after the Temple Executioners, but they're hitting the wall. The Stevie Wonders of the Dwarven world, completely blind, can't shoot in a straight line. Meanwhile, only 24 Moran on Archers, not likely to be a huge presence. I mean, the Citadel Guard are going to need backup here. I mean, this is the problem that the Dwarven and Gondorian player have had with one another. They haven't reinforced one another well enough. There goes the Iron Watch of Miramir, actually shooting into the centre of this position. And they do a lot of damage when they actually hit. Like, the Guards of Khazad-dûm need to be in here. They need to be backing up the Citadel Guard, because eventually they will fall away. And with those Iron Watch, like, they are going to be able to do quite a lot of damage here to this primarily Isengard force, which seems to be taking point. Of course, it's very possible Mordor have already exhausted much of their infantry on that push through, and indeed, I believe they have. A lot of dead trolls over here. The Uruk-hai crossbowmen have got a very nice shot into the Citadel Guard as well. Although they're going after the Iron Watch, which, considering the amount of damage they are actually doing to Isengard, is maybe not the worst idea. Now they're going to retreat, so the dwarves... It's going to be a rear guard action once again. Another unit is having to be thrown under the bus here. Citadel Guard will hold on for quite some time. Their AP means they'll do a little bit more damage than you would expect from most spears as well, but it's only a matter of time before the Uruk-hai overwhelm them, especially when something like the Berserkers or the Nazkai get onto the front line. It's going to be curtains for them. Meanwhile, another defensive line being set up, more Barding Herd, this time backed up by Raven Helms. Witchround Pikemen and Barrow Wights trying to get into position. The Barrow Wights, of course, doing their thing where they kind of glitch through the lines, which is a very weird thing indeed. This, however, is like suicidal. Like, I'm not sure what the Gondorian player is hoping to achieve with this. The only units you can really see are your own. You're going to shoot right through them. You're going to get so much friendly fire, it's not worth it. You need to get your catapult into a better position than that. There's only 5 crewmen left, but the Dalian player at this point is probably wishing it was none, if that's what they're going to continue to do. Because this line is holding. The last thing they want is to see it break because of friendly fire from the catapult. More and more units pouring across there, so yeah, it is just a very defensive position over here. Maybe a counter-attack here could have some pretty good results. Send forward a unit of Keldwyn River Patrol maybe to soften them up and then charge in with all your infantry. Go after the spears and the Mountaineeric host to try and get in behind, but that may very well attract the attention of all of these units over here. Angmar and the Misty Mountains, of course, still have quite a lot of their force left. Now they're starting to pour forwards in numbers. Angmar Marauders and Mountaineeric host getting onto the front line to support. But so too are the dismounted Earls of Dale and the Nimlothian Honor Guard. That'll be a much more welcome sight for the Dalians on the front line. And this is going to be difficult, honestly, to break through. Like, the Barrow Wights will last a long time on the front line. Here come the Mountain Orc Berserkers to try and add some AP, which will be useful, but I can't help but feel as though maybe... Well, here goes the catapult. Are they going after the Witches? I think they are. They'll have to settle for just a grazing blow on the Heavy Goblin Halberds. The Witches are going to be a worry, of course. Heavy Goblin crossbows, I mean, they do have a fairly decent shot, to be fair. Right into the heart of that position. They are going for the Witches, but I doubt they're going to hit them, honestly. Forward come the Blackback Mountain Berserkers. The Blackwatch Legion are moving onto the front line as well, though uphill, and considering the amount of forces that are still left, I don't think a mass push is going to work here. But maybe they just want some more infantry on the front line, like, it's possible. Pretty expensive to just use as workhorses on the front line, but needs must, I suppose. There's still Angmar Marauders available, though. I mean, I think they are going to try and push through, but I don't think they're going to have too much success. There's still reinforcements as well. There's Fountain Guard, there's Wardens of the White Tower. Probably going to be just fine here, I would imagine. I mean, with those crossbows on the other side of the chasm, though, and they do have a nice shot in here, that is going to take its toll eventually, and it's going to be, I think, an efficient engagement here that Angmar and the Misty Mountains have going for them. Meanwhile, as we zoom through the town centre and see what's happening over here, yeah. As expected, the Citadel Guard, some Khazdan Reclaimers were sent to maybe try and give a bit of token support, but ultimately destroyed. And now, I think, doing the right thing, they're just going to sort of wait in the town centre, because if Mordor and Isengard do pour forwards into the town centre right now, they can be overwhelmed, so if I were them I would probably wait a little longer, see what Angmar and the Misty Mountains can do to the enemy. Guardians of Khazad over there, the Blackwatch Legion trying to push their way through, but not really having too much success. They are certainly going to meet their demise at the hands of the Nimlothian Honour Guard. Still bolts raining in, though. Bardian Marksmen being committed to the front line, not half bad in melee, honestly. Certainly not world beaters, but every man is going to need to do their bit on the front line here in order to try and hold this line. It's Mathala range as well, but you can see here that this is shifting toward the Orcs, this fight. Bit by bit. And I think that maybe the defenders are a little bit reluctant to send more reinforcements in because those heavy goblin crossbows have taken up such an effective position, and they have nothing to respond to them now with either. Which is worrying, because that means they have nothing to respond to the Witches with either. So certainly the defenders under the cosh a bit here. Very limited amount of Morannon archers here trying to do their thing. Some Orc javelins over here as well. They're shooting right into the front of the Citadel Guard. Uruk-hai infantry moving forward here as well. The Gondor infantry are coming out, but as soon as they do, they're going to be pounced upon by a force, and this will probably be the end of these Gondorians here. Although I don't know, those Uruk-hai infantry are just sort of rubbing up against them and then running away. Honestly, if I were the defenders, I wouldn't be too concerned about 23 Morannon archers. Especially if in the knowledge that if you do come forward, you're just going to be jumped on by all of these units, like crossbows, temple executioners. None of it particularly appealing. Meanwhile, honestly, if I were the Gondorians, I would keep the catapult in the town centre. It would be more useful here, I think. Maybe teeing off into Isengard and Mordor, as opposed to being over here where they can't really do much. They're not going to be able to hit the Witches. Even if they do, they won't kill off the entire unit, and you know, if you can't kill off the entire unit of Witches, there's no point, because they can still do the same amount of damage. Dismounted Earls of Dale being committed forward. Barrow Wights still there. And that's the thing that the Barrow Wights do offer. Like, when the Barrow Wights are in a frontline engagement like this, it can be so difficult to get rid of them. Even in their slightly weakened state, I feel as though they're still a very useful part of Angmar's army, honestly. Just trying to grind the enemy down here, the Orcs, as they are wont to do with their superior numbers. they do need to be a little bit careful they don't take too many losses here. I mean, the Nimlothi and Honor Guard are quite comfortable here on the front line, backed up by some strong Dalian units as well. Certainly not going to be the easiest task. And there is a fight going on down here, so they are going to counter-attack the dismounted Earls of Dale, but they're being overwhelmed here. I don't know what they're really hoping to achieve here. This seemed like a really half-hearted counter-attack here from Dale. They needed to do it with everything, really. Like, the Morroquendi pikes needed to follow them. The javelins are coming in, which will be a good bit of support, but the pikes need to be on the front line here. They need to be supporting the Bardian marksmen and the dismounted Earls of Dale a little bit better than this. The pikes are now coming down. Organisation here is going to be key, because they could do a lot of damage to this sort of Misty Mountains force if they wanted to. Keldon River Patrol now being added to the front line as well. They're not really going to offer too much as a melee unit, but numbers going to be important here, just to try and get in the way of the Orcs. Yeah, I'm not really a fan of how that engagement was set up. The Earls and the Pikes needed to come forward as one. The Javelins needed to be in support. All of that needed to be happening. And now the Snow Trolls are going to make their way up there as well to do some damage of their own. Meanwhile, more forces being committed to the front line. Guardians of Khan Doom, the Witchhound Blackguard are making their way to the front line now as well. So it might be time to think about committing forward another unit of infantry. The Warns of the White Tower would be a like-for-like unit to send in there. And it would allow Dale and Gondor to continue holding this line for longer. The dragon motifs on the Dalian cloaks, the Blackback Mountain Berserkers shambling their way forward, the Witchers worryingly on the move. Meanwhile, yeah, this is bait that you can't really afford to fall for. Almighty Landon has been baited out of his defensive position, and now, rather than going into a meat grinder of a choke point, Mordor and Isengard are going to be able to take advantage of this position and start to surround some of these units, including, you know, Warns of Minas Ithil and Veterans of Osgiliath are not units you want to be losing in this manner. And with upgraded Temple Executioners, the Uruk-hai are on the way forward. So once again, I think the Gondorian player showcasing a little bit of inexperience, falling for a classic bait and switch, really. Uruk-hai Berserkers are down there as well. There's Uruk-hai Crossmen trying to get into position, and as soon as they get into position, I mean, I suppose with the crossbows here there's not much choice. But I mean, if you're going to counter-attack out here, you need to do it with everything. Once again, I think the Dwarves and Gondor have been guilty of just sending forward individual units to their demise and playing into Mordor and Isengard's hands over here. It's not as if Mordor and Isengard have managed to push their way forward here for free. That both their armies are looking very depleted at this point, but overall the engagements have been efficient for them, and that's all they'll care about. Meanwhile, over on this side, Mordor, Misty Mountains and Angmar continuing to put the pressure on. Blackback Berserkers now heading toward the front line. Reinforcements are going to be needed if this front line is going to continue to hold. Meanwhile, over here, the Snow Trolls did make their way forward. The Keldon River Patrol and the Pikes are now on the front line as they should have been from the start. Morroquendi bows are firing at something. They're firing at the Witches and succeeding at killing them. Oof. That's not good news for Angmar. The Witches were an ace in the hole that they had. They still have, I think, one? Yeah, because there's the General, the Banner Carrier, and then there's one actual Witcher. So they can still use it, but that was a good catch there from the Morroquendi Bowman. Very good. So, hope still. Hope springs eternal. We shall see if that makes a big difference, because that will mean that Dale and Gondor should feel a little bit more confident about continuing to hold this line. The crossbows don't have the best shot anymore now that sort of they're starting to crest the hill, which may be the ideal position to try and hold the front line, but they're going to need more of these Gondorians if they are going to do that, because you know, the elite units are starting to make their way forward now. Blackback Berserkers and Blackguard are already on the front line. The Goblin King Bodyguard are also ready to come forward, but it's been a very punishing climb for the Orcs over on this side. Meanwhile, on this end of the engagement, the Citadel Guard are holding the front line here now, but the force that was sent out here of Warns of Minas Ithil and Veterans of Osgiliath were dealt with fairly comfortably in the end. Isengard sending forward their pikes. I don't think there's any ranged units to really bother the Uruk-hai pikemen at this point either, which means they'll be able to get their pikes down and potentially force the enemy back. They still have their Sword Masters of Esgaroth in here. Pretty good unit to have, as well as the Dalian Paladins, a very good unit to have here in the late game. Guards of Khazad-dûm, so they're not helpless back here, but again, you can see that Isengard, what they really want to do is get their crossbows into the best position possible, which is potentially why all of these units are hiding behind the big stone walls of Moria. In comes some Marksmen of Caer-Andros, so finally some reinforcements being committed forward now. Marksmen of Caer-Andros going into this area where the line is looking pretty thin, and that's because the Blackback Berserkers are starting to carve their way through it. I'm not sure Marksmen of Caer-Andros will be enough to stop them, to be honest with you, as they continue to hack and slash their way through. You're going to need both the Wards of the White Tower and the Fountain Guard, I think, to continue to hold this line for too much longer. Witches are still over there, biding their time, I think, realising the fact that the Morroquendi bows are just waiting for them to make another move. The Snow Trolls are still here. Like, the Snow Trolls have lasted longer on this front line than I thought they would. And to be fair, I think it's because they're up against primarily low damage units at this point. There's not many Earls left. It's mainly pikemen and out of ammunition javelins. Having said that, the Snow Trolls are pretty much the only thing on their side of the engagement left as well. Some very battered and bruised Mountain Uruk hosts. So pretty much whoever wins this is going to be a very Pyrrhic victory, which is something which the defenders in particular will probably be fairly disappointed with. In come the heavy goblin crossbows, which might be enough to make the difference in favour of the attackers, to be honest. And the defenders will have been hoping that they could have forced a little bit more of a win over here, I think, but can't be helped now. Now forward come the Witchers. Can the Morroquendi bows get some shots off? Nope, the Morroquendi bows are moving off, which is probably the signal that the Angmar player was waiting for to move his Witchers forwards again. There's the Goblin King's bodyguard. Gondor being a bit stingy with their reinforcements once again. But to be fair, I mean, they're still holding on here. I'm not sure for how much longer, but they're definitely making the attackers work for this one. Cave Troll Drummers, again, this is the sort of unit which can make things very difficult for the defenders as well. Like, it's possible there would have been more breaking from the attackers, if not for the Goblin King bodyguard and the Cave Troll Drummers applying those buffs to the Misty Mountains. And the Witchround Blackguard, I believe, also do the same for Angmar as well. So a lot of morale buffs going on. Over here, meanwhile, again, another pretty token force. Like the Citadel Guard on the front line are going to be doing their best, but the rest of the units that they're being reinforced with, Isengard and Mordor once again, flexing their muscles a little bit. And they should be just fine in this situation, you would imagine. Some Greenwood Lumbermen moving in. 3 Greenwood Lumbermen will surely be enough to make the difference. The Morroquendi bows getting into place. There's a lot of units back here. I wonder what they intend to do. Those Sword Masters are moving off to that side. Most interesting. Not much left in the town centre now, to be honest. Yeah, this side is starting to crumble. Like, they need more reinforcements over there. They need both the Gondorian units that are in reserve. Otherwise, this front line's going to fall apart. And then you're going to be at the mercy of all these units. The Witches are still over there. Keldwyn River Patrol. At this point, defeat is a distinct possibility. Excuse me. The Snow Trolls starting to fall away now, finally. The Morroquendi Pikes are doing their best, but they're going to need some help if they're going to see this fight over the line. And I think that's what the Sword Masters of Esgaroth are coming over here for. Hopping over the wall. What's it going to take for Gondor to send these units in? I know that they're going to be reluctant to because the Witches are so close, but I'm not sure the Witches have got a good shot, honestly. Like, if they shoot now, they're going to go right through their own army, so... I say Witchers, it's Witcher at this point. Guards of Khazad-dûm, again, this is another situation where they've sent just a single unit into an overwhelming force from Mordor and Isengard. And even the Guards of Khazad-dûm are not going to be able to stand up to this level of pressure. Like, this is going to be, I think, a most painful lesson for the Gondor and Khazad-dûm player in this battle, that you cannot just send individual units in and expect them to do much of anything. Like, the Morroquendi bows are doing their best here, and I would certainly say that you can tell of all the defenders that the Dalian player is the one who has played the game the most, because he has certainly been making less of these mistakes. In fact, he hasn't made those mistakes at all. His situation has been somewhat different over on the other side. He's done quite a good job, but ultimately, there's a limit to what he can do at this point. I think it's on the Gondorian player to send his reinforcements in to try and save this front line, because at this point, the Goblin King bodyguard, the Witch-Round Blackguard, and the Blackback Mounted Berserkers. They're wrapping up the line, and it's only a matter of time before the Dalians and Gondorians fall, and now they're going to send forward their Wards to the White Tower. It's far too late at this point. The front line's gone. It's gone. You've missed it. You've missed your chance. That's disappointing to see, because it shows that he is, you know, in control of his army still, but he's just apparently blind. Disappointing, to say the least. Dalian Paladins on their way down here. That may very well have been the Gondorian general as well, almost immediately as he entered the fight. And to be fair, the Wards of the White Tower up against the Blackbacks probably come out of that engagement slightly better. The Wards of the White Tower are going to need help. Dalian Paladins and Morikwendi Bows on their way down here. I still don't know why the Fountain Guard are just standing around like lemons. But there we go. Meanwhile, over here at the very least, Dale are going to finally be victorious with the addition of those Sword Masters of Esgaroth. Finally a victory for the defenders, but I'm not sure whether Dale is going to be able to salvage this battle for them. Yeah. You can see here that there's not much left to offer resistance in the face of what is primarily Isengard at this point. Like, Mordor expended a lot of their energy and effort in getting through the Dwarven army initially, but they're still here with some key supporting units like the Temple Executioners, which obviously as an individual unit are going to be very difficult to stop. There's still a lot of these Isengard pikes which are going to make life very difficult for the defenders. There goes the Dwarven general, falling away. The Dwarven player is pretty much gone at this point. The Guards of Khazad-dûm are the only ones left. Well, I mean, there's the catapult. Could this be the Gondor player's redemption? No, complete miss. That really sums up the misfortune that the Gondorian player has had to go through so far. And you can see here, if this had been done sooner, this could have been such a difference maker. The Witchers trying to reload, get into a position. There goes a break. You can see here the Wards of the White Tower doing their thing. Bows, Fountain Guard. Again, if they had been committed sooner, yes, no, it's always possible the Witchers could have come forward, but it's better to surely stand a chance at maybe breaking the enemy line, rather than just sort of allowing the enemy to slowly munch through your manpower as the defenders did here. Still, it's a lesson for the Gondorian and Khazad-dûm player in this situation, I think. A lot of routing from the heavy goblins there. The Misty Mountain's starting to fall away, which is interesting considering their drummers are still on station. So victorious over there, and now they're going to try and fall back to the town centre, killing off that little expeditionary force from the goblins of the Misty Mountains, which is still trying to reload. But again, they don't have a good shot here on this hill, which is another reason why I'm so surprised that the Fountain Guard and the Wards of the White Tower did not move forward sooner. Because at this point they're going to win, I think. The Fountain Guard with their phalanx formation, the Wards of the White Tower and the Morikwendi Bows in support, I think they are going to win this one, with the routing that's going on as well on this side. But the problem is, when all is said and done, well, that catapult, can that catapult be the redemption? The Dalian Paladins are trying to hold back the Horde, but once again, Mordor and Isengard so often in this fight have just found their whole army only being met with resistance by one unit in melee. So once again, they're just going to overwhelm. There's Uruk-hai Berserkers and Pikes here. I think they're trying to go after the Lurtz hunting pack. Another good hit, honestly. Temple Executioners here. There's only so many Dalian Paladins left, though. They're going to need those reinforcements. They're going to need the Morikwendi Pikes and the Sword Masters of Esgaroth to come back to make sure that the attackers don't take the town centre, because at this point that is a very real worry. It's close, it's dead even in terms of percentages, but generally speaking that does mean that the attackers are still ahead in terms of overall manpower. In terms of elite units, I mean, there's still crossbows left alive, which is a concern. Here come the Sword Masters of Esgaroth with their Zweihanders. What have we got going on over here? So yeah, they're going to have to peel off some units from this front line over here, which, you know, the Fountain Guard, without the Fountain Guard on this front line, oh no, it was the Goblin General. I saw the Gondorian General sort of in there still. There he is. Yeah, without the Fountain Guard on this front line, I think eventually Angmar and the Misty Mountains will be able to force their way through, with only the Wardens of the White Tower and a few Earls left. But the Fountain Guard, I can see why they're pulling back at this point. This is something which I can see why the Gondorian players doing it, because they need to do something here, because Isengard and what's left of Mordor are, well, as you can see here, the Uruk-hai pikemen are routing off. Could it be that in spite of all my criticisms, the defenders still manage to hold on? If they do, then I think the Dalian player deserves a massive amount of credit for the way they've played. Because they've absolutely made life very, very difficult for Angmar and the Misty Mountains over on the other side with their archers and with all of that. Temple Executioners. The problem that I think they will have is the fact that they still have a relatively healthy unit of crossbows which can do the business. Trying to go after, I think, the Fountain Guard. Very close battle. Moria always seems to produce close battles, doesn't it? Temple Executioner is going to get into the rear of the Sword Masters of Escaroth, which should be enough to finish them off. Shifting across now, the Uruk-hai crossbowman. Actually, they're retreating. 20 Berserkers. It's a lot of Fountain Guard, honestly. There goes the Mordor General. That many Fountain Guard in the late game is going to be tough. And here comes some Morroquendi pikes as well. A lot of phalanx units. And at this point, Isengard don't have much of theirs left. There goes the Dalian General. Lurt's hunting pack on the front line. What's going on down here? Of course, the one thing to bear in mind is the fact that there's still that Witcher left. Warns of the White Tower going to be killed off now. Cave Troll Drummers, Barrow Whites, Blackbacks, but not much over here. But that Witcher is still alive. Could he be the difference? Because again, one volley through the Fountain Guard could be key here. Because I mean, it really is going to be on the back of the Fountain Guard whether or not the defenders are able to pull this out or not. I don't think they will be able to be honest with you, based on the manpower they've got left. Just based on the fact that there is that one Witcher left who could be the difference, and there's also the fact that crossbows now do have a very nice shot into the Fountain Guard. I think the attackers are just about going to be able to hold themselves together. Temple Executioners still doing their thing. Very depleted Naz Kai, but at this point every man is going to count, and I think the Orcs are just about going to be able to move into Moria and make it their new home here. But a fantastic battle from start to finish, I have to say. Yeah, the Orc announcer's feeling pretty confident. The Wardens of the White Tower are going to fall away. There goes the Gondorian General. Stabbed with one of the Uruk-hai Greatswords, which is probably a fairly painful way to go, considering the shape of them. Not really a sword, I suppose. It does resemble more of an axe in the way that it's used. Two-handed war pick. Hence why they're AP, I suspect. Yeah, the Fountain Guard falling away. The problem the Fountain Guard also had there was they weren't really able to organise themselves into a nice flat line. They had to just sort of charge in as quickly as possible and try and do something, but they weren't able to in the end. And that's not the Gondorian player's fault. Like, I was fairly critical of Gondor's play in this battle, but he is a newer player. So don't just rip into him in the comment section, please. Because I can't help but feel as though that sort of thing does put people off from actually trying the game. But ultimately it's a lesson, I think, for the Gondorian and Khazad player, because if they had assisted one another a little bit more, I do believe that the defenders would have won this, because there's not much of the attackers left. The Blackbacks are really the most substantial unit they have left alive. Other than that, depleted Drummers, one Witcher, and a depleted bunch of Uruk-hai. Not much at all. And yeah, 100 to 96, so a very close battle indeed. But in the end, the Orcs are going to be victorious as they celebrate their conquest of the town centre. And yeah, I would give the defensive MVP to Dale. Again, his experience in the game obviously shone through in comparison to his two allies. As for the attackers, though, you have to give credit to Mordor and Isengard. I think they were helped a little bit by the way that the Dwarves and Gondor set up, only sending individual units into them one by one. Like, imagine what a single unit of Citadel Guard could have done for them here in the late game, had they set their stall out a little bit better. But even so, you can only fight what's in front of you, and I think that Mordor and Isengard did very well at that. Angmar and the Misty Mountains had a tougher task, it must be said. I think the way that Dale set up with a little bit of that Gondorian support was a much harder section of the battlefield to get their way through. But again, they did okay. You know, they did their job. And yeah, we'll see what did the damage, I think, for Mordor, because most of their damage was actually done earlier on during that push through the orcs, and rather unsurprisingly, the way that the trolls were used was the key thing here. The Bulldogs of Durthang were actually in that battle somewhere, but we never saw them because they are a small unit, and they were just all sort of in and amongst it. They must have been killed off by the dwarves during the push. But the way that Mordor and Isengard used their trolls to hunt down the archers and the catapult crew and all of that stuff was important. So yeah, very well done for that. Temple Executioners also getting a lot of kills as the battle went along. Orc Javelins in the early game also doing well for Agalar. So big thank you to Matt Braun for sending this one to me. Big thank you to Agalar for saving the replay to give to him, to give to me. And a big thank you to all the players in general for playing, because that was a very good one. Moria does tend to produce some very close and competitive games. So yeah, I'm not sure what's going to be next. Like I said, it is a bit of a weird time. I'm not really sure how things are going to develop moving forwards. It's a little bit... There's a lot of variables going on at the moment. Now, like I've said before, it's not really going to affect the channel as such. In many ways, I probably will be able to keep up, just about be able to keep up one video every 2 days. You know, if not, then I may miss the occasional day and just push it back by one. But for the most part, I should be able to keep this schedule up for a bit. I'm not sure, really. Like, I can't really offer too much in the way of solidity, unfortunately, at the moment. But just know that the channel will stay regular. So from a viewing perspective, not much is really going to change. And if it does, I will obviously release another channel update video. I may do that in the future anyway, when I know what things are going to be doing in a little bit more of a solid fashion. But we shall see. Like I said, big thank you for watching this, and I did hope you enjoy this, and I hope you will join me for whatever is next.